Hey, welcome back. It's been a couple weeks since I did a video, so I needed to figure out some sort of topic that I could break the ice with to get to dust off some cobwebs, since it's been a bit since I recorded a video. Today's topic is about what us as photographers can do at home when we're not shooting. So with everything going on in the world, we've all spent more time at home over the past year than ever before. So personally, this time at home has challenged me to find creative ways to stay active as a photographer. Just like with a lot of things I talk about, obviously this is all from my perspective as mostly a city street photographer and an occasional landscape type stuff. If you're a professional wedding or portraiture photographer, this list will be modified significantly probably for you. But this is kind of the things that has worked for me, stuff that I've discovered that I really like to do when I'm not out. This topic of what can photographers do at home when not shooting has been a topic that's popped up relatively often over the past year on photography forums or photography groups like the Facebook groups I'm a part of. So I figured it'd be nice for me to contribute to this conversation in a video form. So the topics I talk about in this video are general topics, general ideas. I intend to turn this list into a video series where in each video of the series I dive deeper into each one of these subjects. But before that series starts, this video is to serve as an overview, as an introduction to the topics of the activities that photographers, specifically me as a street photographer, can do at home. Some of these may seem obvious, and some of them are clearly obvious. Some of these we do naturally, we don't have to think about it. But oftentimes with just like with anything, being conscious about it, writing lists, and having a strategy sometimes helps you be more efficient and gives you more ideas. So here are 8 things photographers can do while stuck at home. Number 1, clean your gear. Right off the top, one of the most obvious things that you can do. If you haven't shot in a while, then your gear may be clean already, who knows, but either way, oftentimes I'll find that I have let weeks or months go by without cleaning either a specific lens or a few lenses or some aspect of my gear, whether it's tripod, lens, the bag, camera itself. There's a myriad of things that can collect dust or fingerprints, and it never hurts to look at all your gear, especially your lenses and your camera, and see if it needs to be dusted off, that there's fingerprints, oil, grime that needs to be cleaned off. This is a simple activity, something we take for granted, something you might do by default, something you might do on a regular basis, but it's something that I haven't really scheduled in and something I need to start making a routine instead of just something that happens when I see a piece of dirty gear. So number 1 is very simple, obvious, clean your gear. Number 2, organize and purge your gear. Those are kind of 2 separate activities, but I still think they're connected enough to be included into one item. So organizing is self-explanatory. Sometimes my gear just finds itself scattered around my desk or my shelves, and it's a good idea for me to go through once a week or once every other week and put lenses back where they belong on my shelf, put the camera bodies on the shelf as well, clean out my camera bags, and assess what gear I have, make sure it's all put in its proper place. And when doing that, I am able to get a look at what gear I'm using, what gear I'm not using. If something is sat on a shelf for a very long time, then maybe it's a sign that you should consider putting that in your purge or sell pile. This is something that I do a few times a year, gather the gear I'm not using to sell or donate, just to get out of the house and make room for new gear and to get some money to contribute to new gear. I'm actually selling some old film photography gear really soon. That money is going to go towards a new lens. And this is something I'll do a few times throughout the year. But organizing and purging is something that can be very, very beneficial, especially if you find stuff that you could sell. You can put that towards something else that you've been wanting. Number 3, back up your photos. Again, I admit, a lot of these are obvious. Backing up is obvious, but something a lot of us oftentimes put off till it's too late. So this is something that you can schedule in using your computer. If your photo storage is always connected, you can set up automated tasks on your computer to back that up to another drive, to back that up to a cloud storage, or you can do it manually each time and back your photo library up to a separate drive or whatever backup solution that you decide is best. But just backing up your photo library is extremely important. You don't want to lose all that hard work that you put into building your library up to this point. So this is something that I have on my to-do list over the next few days, and it's something I figured it would be definitely important to include in this list. And this is something that will be very, very helpful to dive into deeper when I tackle this category in this video series. So back up your photo library. Number 4, review your photos. So again, this sounds obvious, right? But what do I mean by review your photos? Obviously, go through and look through them. If you have been shooting for a few years, you may have not looked at some photos from a while back in a long time. This can do a lot of good. You can learn from mistakes, learn from things you've done good. Take notes on all that, and be conscious about how you apply what you've learned looking through your photos, how you're going to apply that to the next shoot. When you're reviewing your photos, notice the locations you visited. Take note of any locations that you want to revisit and how you're going to attack that location differently the next time. Do you need to bring a different lens? Do you need to find different angles? When you're reviewing your photos, another thing that's really helpful, especially to new photographers who may have just bought a new camera with a zoom kit lens, look through your photos and notice if you've taken a lot of photos in certain focal lengths. This way, if you haven't bought a prime yet, or maybe you're just in the market for a new prime, based on your past photos, you can better decide which prime lens to get. I did this early on, and it was really helpful to learn what focal lengths I was really drawn to. Although this evolves over time, so this is something to do, maybe a couple of times a year, just to see which focal lengths you're drawn to, and to learn about the lenses you already have too. But definitely review your photos, learn from your past experiences, get inspired by what you've done good, learn from the mistakes you made, and move forward with more information. Number 5, work on photo projects. Working on photo projects doesn't always mean shooting. You can pre-concept a photo project if you don't have one in the works already. You can design the layout for the photo project if it's a book, or if it's a website or something like that. You can work on the design and layout. You can do some test prints if you have a printer at home, or if you have a darkroom and you're doing film prints, you can do some test prints to see how some of these photos look on paper. But there are a lot of aspects of a photo project that can be done, that need to be done to complete that project or to get a project started without even picking up the camera. Number 6 is learn. I know this is a very general category, but it's something that if you are focused on it, it can greatly improve how successful you are next time you go out to shoot. So this could be anything from signing up for Skillshare and taking a photo course on there, finding tutorials on YouTube, getting some photo books for your Kindle, or maybe even going to the library and getting some photo books there. But finding resources to learn tactical skills on how to operate your camera, how to light if you're a portraiture photographer, how to frame cool shots if you're a street photographer, but learn specific things to what kind of photography you want to do, and take notes on these things and make a game plan on how to implement them when you go out next time to shoot. If you do what I do oftentimes, which is just blindly search through YouTube and follow the YouTube wormhole like I've done many times, that can land you on some good stuff. But oftentimes if you go in with a purpose, you can maximize your time on YouTube or whatever other resource that you use. So sometimes I'll have a playlist where I collect a lot of tutorials on how to maximize my Fujifilm cameras, or tutorials on how to maybe use flash photography. I'm still trying to get really good at that, and subjects of that matter. But use your time at home to learn and expand your skills. Number 7, refill that creative well. What does that mean? Well, that means to look for stylistic and creative inspiration. This is something we do naturally sometimes, but again, I think if you attack it with purpose, then you can maximize the benefit you get out of it. There are an infinite amount of places for creative inspiration. This could be photo books, it could be online galleries or portfolios, it could be magazines both in digital and print. One of the things I love to do is go to Google and search in popular photography or older photography magazines, because they have a really cool archive of old magazines, and I like to browse through those old magazines and see what some of the styles were like in the 70s and 80s and 90s, because those things are great inspiration for stuff I want to shoot now. So books and magazines, both digital and in print, are great inspiration. Instagram is an obvious one. Many of us are on Instagram, and it's a great source of inspiration. A lot of amazing photographers use that as their only portfolio. So Instagram can be extremely helpful. There's a balance with Instagram though, because Instagram can be an inspiration, but it can also have the reverse effect where it may be just discouraging if you are comparing yourself too much to other photographers that have a years of experience and an established following and all these kinds of things. So Instagram is a great inspiration, but can easily be have an opposite effect on you. Another thing to do is diversify the art medium in which you get your inspiration from. One of my biggest inspirations for years and years and years has been album art. I love music and I love album art, whether that's the cover or the photography inside. There's just something about some album art that I really connect with, and that's been a huge inspiration for me. Movie posters, movies themselves, obviously directors of photography are great photographers. They just work in the moving images medium as opposed to the still image, but movies themselves are great inspiration. Paintings obviously can be great inspiration. They have you're working with shape and form and color and contrast and all the same elements that we work with as a photographer. We're just capturing it, framing it, and as opposed to actually painting it. So refill that creative well by finding all kinds of creative inspiration and stylistic inspiration for yourself. Take notes on it and do this on a relatively regular basis, and that way you're not always looking at the same piece of inspiration and trying to mimic that all the time. Number 8, window shop with a purpose. Okay, I don't know about you, but I always have a handful of gear that I look at constantly that either I can't afford now or some of it that I doubt I'll ever be able to afford. But either way, I try to have a list of gear that I can buy whenever I do have the money. So I'll do research on a lens or a camera body, and I'll figure out the cost of that piece of equipment with tax, so I know exactly how much money I'm going to need when I'm ready to buy it. So I'll have different levels of these kinds of lists. I'll have my ultimate wish list, if it's a Leica SL2 with this lens or whatever, and then I'll have more realistic list of items that I will eventually get when I get that money. So we all window shop, but I think you can turn window shopping online into a useful tool. And that way, if you do come across some money, you get a freelance gig or what have you, you finally have money saved up. You've spent the time doing research, and when you do make that purchase decision, it's more informed and less of an impulse buy. You've done all your research and you know exactly what you want to buy. So I'm sure many of you have developed a lot of routines and things you've done while stuck at home to keep your photography and creative juices flowing. So I'd love to hear what your ideas are in the comments below. I'd love for you to contribute to the conversation, so please comment and let me know what activities that you've done or what other ideas you have that could be added to a list like this. I'm sure there are a handful of things I forgot to mention, and like I said, this will be an ongoing series of stuff that I'll revisit. I'll dive deeper into these subjects in other videos. So maybe if you mention something, I'll make a video about that later. So that's it for now. I appreciate every one of my subscribers, And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do so. You know the drill, because I'm sure you've heard other people say it, and it's true. Like 90% of viewers don't subscribe, so hopefully I can get that number skewed a bit more the other way. But again, I appreciate every one of you, and thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.